What the monotheistic religions intentionally obscure from the forefront of our minds is that this world started as a waste of water called Nu, which means deep abyss. They admit the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, but the billion, with a B, years that sentient life has existed on, in and above our planet is never discussed in any detail, and the very idea is treated as heresy. If you attempt to bring this topic to light, you will be ridiculed and mocked to scorn, and in times past, put to death. In this video, we will pour the first waters, called Nu, to help bud the seed of your root chakra, called Arush by our ancestors, and encourage the rising of your spiraling stairway to heaven, raising your vibrational awareness from Nagas, primordial amphibious sentience, to etheric unconditional divine love of all in all, overcoming separation, and finally experiencing oneness. Nu was the abode of the Great Father and many beings such as the Kemenu Ogdoads. A pair of 8 in all, Nun, Nunet, He, Hehet, Kek, Kekit, Amun, and Amunet, who dwelled in the house of Kobs in the Great Waters. One group in particular was the troglodytes from the planet Maldek. Nu housed all beings, for the Ma, water covered the whole planet Ta, Earth. Nu was considered the deep and all Pa Ta, the earth was covered with Ma, water, and he gave being unto Pa Re, the sun deity who hath said, Lo, I am Khepera at dawn Autumn Re, Atun Re at high noon, and Amun Re at sunset. From Nu you get Tum or Autumn Re, the first morning, the birth of the Son of Righteousness. And from Autumn Re you get Shu, and Tefnut, and from those two you get Geb and Nut, who gave birth to Asaru, Aset, Neptet, and Suchuk. From Asaru, User, Osiris, and Aset, Eset, Isis, came Haru, Hera, Horus, and from Asaru and Neptet, Nephthys, came Anubu, Anubis, which created the first hate. By that I mean Suchuk, Set, was the mate to Neptet, Nephthys, yet Asaru, Osiris, impregnated her, and Suchuk wanted revenge. As told by the deity Nebuchadnezzar, the everlasting deity of the universe. The desire to create the heavens and the earth arose in his mind, and he assumed the form of the deity Khepera, who from first to last was regarded as a form of Nu, or the creator. At this time nothing existed except the vast mass of celestial waters which the Egyptians called Nu, and in this existed the germs of all living things that subsequently took form in heaven and on earth, but they existed in a state of inertness and helplessness. When Khepera rose out of this watery mass, he found himself in an empty space, and he had nothing to stand upon. Khepera came into being by pronouncing his own name, and when he wanted a place whereon to stand, he first conceived the similitude of that standing place in his mind, and when he had given it a name, and uttered that name, the standing place at once came into being. This process of thinking out the existence of things is expressed in Egyptian words which mean literally laying the foundation of the heart. According to the testament of our great ancestor and master teacher Tahuti, during one of his meditations he visited worlds where beings, once humanoids much like ourselves, had advanced to such a high state of awareness they were able to create whole cities through thought alone. This is our birthright as Nagaru, to reascend or rise again to the heights of our Netarot ancestors, having the ability, through knowledge, wisdom and overstanding to create using the very laws that allow our universe to exist. The birth of light from the waters, and of fire from the moist mass of primeval matter, and of Ra from Nu, formed the starting point of all mythological speculations, conjectures, and theories of the Egyptian priests. The light of the sun gave birth to itself out of chaos, that is talking about when 554 million tons of hydrogen changes into 550 million tons of helium each second. Out of chaos is speaking of the original suns that exploded, and the conception of the future world was depicted in Tahuti, the divine intelligence. Tahuti, master of divine words and wisdom, is often translated as Thoth, from which they get the word thought. Our master teacher Amun Nubi Ruach Ptah is the reincarnation of Tahuti. This is symbolic of the original pen or quill, to inscribe or record the thoughts and goings on in all world religions. The revealer of the pamphlet of life and death. When Tahuti gave the word, what he commanded at once took place by means of Ptah, opener, and Khnum, molder, and Khonsu, traveler, and Anubu, messenger of heaven and hell, the visible representatives who turned Tahuti's command into deeds. In Tamarayan, ancient African realities it is held sacred that Moses was Thutmoses, beginning with Thutmose I, Aaron was Aneni, Zipporah, Moses' Midianite wife, Exodus 2:21, was actually Amos, Numbers 12:1, Rossi his Cushite wife was Mutnojmet, his sons, Exodus 18:3, Gershon was Wajmos, his other son Eleazar was Amonmos, and his sister Miriam, Numbers 12:1, was the female ruler Hatshepsut, also called Maris. You must also be made to know that Aneni was an ancient Egyptian architect and government official of the 18th dynasty, responsible for major construction projects under the pharaohs Amenhotep I, Thutmose I, Thutmose II, and the joint reigns of Hatshepsut and Thutmose III. While the prophet Moses and his brother the prophet Aaron came utilizing their knowledge of the Tamaraean science of alchemy to administer plagues to the Hyksos that were ruling in the land of Egypt at the time, the Messiah Yeshua Christ did the complete opposite. The Messiah Yeshua Christ, son of Mary, used his knowledge of Tamaraean alchemy to heal the sick, give life to the dead and feed the poor. During his time, the art of healing had reached its peak, thus the prophet Messiah Yeshua raised Lazarus from the dead, he turned water into wine, and he healed the sick. The Messiah Yeshua Christ multiplied 7 loaves of bread and 2 pieces of fish so that 7,000 men, beside women and children, could eat until they were full, leaving behind 7 baskets full of bread, and even with all of this the very people who he came to redeem joined forces to try to kill him. Paulite Christians or so-called followers of the Messiah Yeshua Christ are quick to tell you that Jesus transformed the world. They will tell you that his teachings changed millions of lives for better or worse. And yet, they will also admit that what the Messiah Yeshua Christ taught is seldom understood or even followed, and that is our point. There are no so-called Christians today following the true message of the Messiah Yeshua Christ, although they claim they do. Instead, they follow the false teachings of the disciple Paul. The celestial devil Nan sin, Zuin made it where you cannot even learn the truth without sounding like you are contradicting the Most High. It is the demonic mind of the lower reptilian in you that made you surrender to the demonic interpretation of things, and to badger those sent to raise you up out of person, places and things. You want to comprehend it on your level when it does not always work that way. Understand that before the hydrogen atom, before the law of corpuscles, atoms, cells, organisms, tissue, universes, plants or matter, beings existed in states that are beyond your comprehension. The purpose is for you to gradually let the master teacher raise you, without looking for faults along the way. You will reach that perfect level of divine consciousness and be restored as a deity, as they would call it in their language. In accordance with original Tamaraean, ancient African, teachings, ghost is actually the symbol of death and death forces and thereby cannot be considered holy, undiluted, untampered with, sacred or divine. This is seen and proven by simply looking at the meaning of the English word ghost, phantom, ghoul, ghost soul, poltergeist, mischievous spirit, banshee, ox, specter. And by this definition it is plain to see that this could not be something that proceeds from the Most High Heavenly Father, but instead something which was supplanted into the Bible by those who wanted us to subliminally be giving praise to the wicked forces of ghosts, death gases and 6 ether gases called ghost, gases, simply God's host, and not the Most High Heavenly Father's host. Now when we look at Genesis 2:7 it says, "And Elohim, ba naturu, breathed into man of the breath of life and man became a living soul." Now, this living soul is only made possible by way of the breath of life, the divine wind or breath. Now when this quote is looked at carefully it takes us to the book of Yohana, John, chapter 1, where it says, "In the beginning was the word, Ka-1-Phi-N, and the word, Ka-1-Phi-N, was with Kalum, falsely called God, and the word was Kalum, the same was in the beginning with Kalum. All things were made by Kalum and without Kalum was not anything that was made. In Kalum was life and the life was the light of men. And the light shineth in the darkness and the darkness comprehendeth it not. There was a man sent from God whose name was John, the same came for a witness to bear witness of the light that all men through him might believe. He was not that light but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light which lighteth every man that cometh into the world." With these 2 quotes looked at with proper understanding we find that the life was the true light which lights every Nubian Melanonite child that enters into this world, allowing them to process the rays of the sun through the gift of melanin. This gift of melanin allows you as children of the sun to be able to survive under the sun's rays without fear of skin cancer, and these rays allows your inner sun called the solar plexus to be activated. The solar plexus is none other than the inner sun called solar, from the Latin sol, meaning sun, which once fueled by the breath of life takes in the necessary element called oxygen, by way of the wind or breath called shu in Tamare, ancient Africa, which allows you as a portion of your genealogy's DNA to be a living soul, as the solar plexus activates the nerves of the spinal column which connects to the medulla oblongata, which connects to the 12 occult nerves, activating the various centers of the brain, that allows you to make decisions, movements etc. So again, we say holy soul, because the soul when it is reborn into flesh through the DNA, and is activated by the breath of life, becomes a living soul instead of a dead spirit called ghost. There are beings, the 24 masters, that are here in Earth's atmosphere trying to reverse the negative flow of current that is presently ruling most inhabitants of this planet. They are within the very ethers of your planet, with some being in flesh and many others amongst them maintaining their etheric form. The reason you can't assimilate them is because you haven't developed the inner part of you. Some of you are developing, but you have not developed the inner part, inner standing, of yourself enough to be able to focus on them and allow them to take shape, the way you do physical objects. This means that humans, Nubian females, and humans, Nubian males, are under the impression that when you look at something you really see it, and that is not the reality. The life of these beings so far transcends yours that you cannot even think of the details of the same. Their minds so far transcend yours that to them you scarcely seem to think, and your mental processes seem almost akin to material processes. The matter of which their forms are composed is of the highest planes of matter, nay, some are even said to be clothed in pure energy. What may be said of such beings? On the 9 minor planes of the great spiritual plane of existence there exist beings of who we may speak of as Netarot, Anunnaki, Namos, angels, Orisha, archangels, or demigods. On the lower minor planes dwell those great souls whom we call masters and adepts. Above them come the great hierarchies of the angelic hosts, unthinkable to mortals, and above those come those who may without irreverence, disrespect, be called Elul, the gods. So high in the scale of beings are they, their intelligence and power being akin to these attributed by the Tamaraean, ancient African, races of mortals to their conceptions of supreme being. These beings are beyond even the highest flights of the human and humane imagination, the word divine being the only one applicable to them. Many of these beings, as well as the Netarot, take the greatest interest in the affairs of the universe and play an important part in its affairs. These unseen divinities and etheric helpers extend their influence freely and powerfully in the process of evolution and cosmic progress. Their occasional intervention and assistance in human affairs have led to the many legends, beliefs, religions and traditions of the black race, past and present. They have superimposed their knowledge and power upon the world again and again, all under the law of the all, of course. But yet, even the highest of these advanced beings exist merely as creations of and in the mind of the all, and are subject to the cosmic processes and universal laws. They are still a part of all. We, members of humanity, may call them supreme beings or gods if we like, but they are but the elder brethren of the black race, the god race, the advanced souls who have outstripped their brethren and who have foregone the ecstasy of absorption by the all, in order to help the black race on its upward journey along the path. But, they belong to the universe and are subject to its conditions. They are ethereal and their place is below that of absolute spirit. Each of the elements has hidden qualities or sacred energies vibrating also in tones that reveals latent powers, and by the alchemist's proper use, these elements can be unleashed or molecules altered to create wonderful feats by those linked by blood. All exists before things became something or the sum of things. Through the teachings of Tamarae, ancient Africa, concerning the 9 principles, the principle of Ba, soul, the principle of Ka, body, the principle of Kabet, plasmatic, the principle of Ab, spiritual heart, the principle of Haadi, physical heart, the principle of Ku, mental you, principle of Sekhem, the spark of life in you, the principle of Ka, spirit, and the principle of Ak, etheric you will ascend to the next level of overstanding concerning spirit and soul, spiraling higher up that stairway to heaven.